Pretty soon
All
I'll
right.
have a
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's briefing from UnidosUS Color and UnidosUS of the bipartisan poll of Hispanic voters, the road to 2026. Today, we'll be discussing a Colorado oversample from that nationwide poll. I'm Curtis Hubbard with Onsite Public Affairs, and we work with the Colorado Latino Agenda with Vocis and Color, doing research and presentations on the Colorado Latino electorate throughout the year. I'm going to give our panelists a moment to introduce themselves, and then I'll come back and give you some of the ground rules for today's presentation. Let's start with you, Alex.
Hi, good morning. My name is Alex Sanchez. I'm the president and CEO of Voces Unidas de las Montañas.
And Dusty.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dusty Gurule, President and CEO for the Colorado Organization for Latina Opportunity and Reproductive Rights, or COLOR. Thanks.
And Clarissa.
Hi, everyone. I'm Clarissa Martinez. I'm with UnidosUS, the nation's largest Latino civil rights and advocacy organization, with a network of community organizations that cover the US from east to west and north to south. And so glad to be with you today.
And Gary.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Gary Segura. I'm the S and BSP Research, and I'm happy to be here to present today's findings.
So we're going to handle today's presentation like we've done previously. For those of you who've been with us before, we have a presentation from Gary. We ask that you hold your questions until the end. You can raise your hand to ask a question, and we will unmute you if you'd like to do it that way. You can also submit your questions through the Q&A box. Today's presentation is being recorded, and we'll make that recording available to anyone who would like it afterwards. And we will also be making the presentation, the polling, the crosstabs, and our press release available shortly. So with that, I'm going to toss it over to Clarissa to get us started.
Thank you, Curtis. And thank you again for the opportunity to join you all this morning to share the results of this bipartisan poll of Hispanic voters on the road to 2026 midterm elections. But of course, many developments this week we can probably talk about as well. Deep gratitude to the Colorado Latino Agenda for hosting this briefing and for their invaluable partnership in making this poll possible. Just some national specs on this poll. We interviewed 3,000 registered Hispanic voters with a Colorado oversample of 400. So we hope that given how extensive this survey is, that it helps provide a baseline as we enter the midterm election cycle. Importantly, this survey was conducted by a bipartisan team. BSP Research, you met Gary, and Shaw and Company Research, whose lead pollster is also a pollster for the Fox News political unit. For several cycles now, the Colorado Latino Agenda and UnidosUS have worked to advance an accurate understanding of this critical electorate. Latinos are now the second largest voting age population in the US, yet there continues to be a lot of misconceptions and mistaken assumptions about these voters. From a national perspective, and similarly across the state, the findings from the poll are very clear in this regard. Hispanic voters across the nation feel that their economic situation is precarious and that now their own government is putting their civil rights and personal safety at risk with its policies and tactics. On the economic front, the repeated message from these voters to Congress and the administration is lower costs, raise wages. 4 of the top 5 priorities nationally continue to be dominated by pocketbook issues. Yet 65% of Hispanic voters nationally and nearly 70% in Colorado feel that the president and Republican congressional majority are not paying enough attention to improving the economy so that it works for people like them. And the gut punch of economic insecurity is now compounded by a deep concern about their own and their loved ones' personal safety being put at risk by the actions of their government. Nearly 2/3 believe that civil rights and freedoms have eroded under this precedent. Nearly half are concerned that they or someone close to them can be a victim of political violence. And 4 in 10 fear in their communities people being arrested, even if they are US citizens or legal residents, by immigration enforcement. Related to both economic and personal insecurity, the message to Congress is unequivocal. Do your constitutional job. In Colorado and across the nation, 8 in 10 Hispanic voters are concerned that Congress is not doing its checks and balances job and giving up too much unchecked power to the presidency. And in an environment of razor-thin margins, heeding the messages from these voters is an imperative. Meaningful outreach is also key since, given the youth and growth of this population, about 1/5 of Latino voters nationally are voting for the first time in any given general election. So addressing these voters' concerns will benefit millions of equally situated working American families who are facing similar challenges as this community is. I want to pass it now, the virtual mic, to Alex Sanchez of Voces Unidas to delve deeper into the state context of these findings. Alex?
Thank you, Clarissa. Let me start by, again, just introducing myself, Alex Sanchez, President and CEO of Voces Unidas. We co-lead the Colorado Latino agenda along with Color, our partner from Denver. And to the UnidosUS, Clarissa, thank you for leading this national effort. This is actually the second time that the Colorado Latino agenda has partnered with UnidosUS to make sure that Colorado is part of the national discussions, because Colorado is going to play an important role of whether the House and the Senate flip or stay under GOP control in 2026 and beyond. I also want to just recognize BSP Research and Shaw and company for conducting this poll. This kind of bipartisan research matters because it tells the truth about what Latino voters are feeling, and it challenges the political establishment to actually listen. What we see in the Colorado data mirrors what UnidosUS shared at the national level. Latino voters are tired. We are frustrated, and we are done waiting for Washington to work. In Colorado, cost of living, housing, wages, and healthcare dominate every conversation. Latino families are doing everything right. We're working multiple jobs, we're caring for our loved ones, we're contributing to every part of the state's economy, yet we're falling further behind. Meanwhile, what we see as a Washington that is in dysfunction, we see cruelty in misplaced priorities. The national data makes it clear. Latino voters are overwhelmingly to disapprove of how the Republican Party and President Trump are leading this country. Here in Colorado is no different. Voters see an administration that has the time for political stunts and immigration crackdowns, but not for policies that actually make life more affordable or fair. Latino voters are angry, and rightfully so. They see immigrant families being used as scapegoats and political props, even as those same workers keep Colorado's farms, restaurants, and resorts running. We see Congress failing to protect families from reckless deportations and racial profiling. And they see their rights, reproductive rights, voting rights, civil rights under attack. That's why trust in government is so low. But that's also why the stakes are so high. And despite the frustration, Latino voters in Colorado haven't given up. They're still paying attention. Nearly 3 out of 4 say that they're certain or likely to vote in 2026. And both political parties need to do better. While Democrats, yes, continue to hold an advantage in Colorado, it's not guaranteed. Latino voters are pragmatic. We reward action, not party labels. We will support whomever delivers real progress on jobs, on housing, on healthcare, and yes, on immigration reform. So this poll should be a wake-up call, not just to Republicans, but for Democrats too. If you're delivering for working families, Latino voters will notice. At Voces Unidas and Color, we see this every day. Latino voters want solutions, not spin. We want leadership that values our contributions, defends our rights, not leadership that divides, scapegoats, or hides behind partisan excuses. This poll reminds us that Latino voters in Colorado will once again represent the margin of victory in 2026. The question is, who will earn it and who will lose it? If political leaders want to understand where Colorado is headed, they should start by listening to the voters who feed this state, built it, and keep it running. Because Colorado Latino voters are not just watching, we are ready to decide what comes next. Thank you. And I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. Gary Segura with BSP Research to speak about the key highlights from this year's poll. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I want to thank both Clarissa and Alex for the long-term partnerships that BSP has had with both Voces Unidas and for UnidosUS. I want to thank Darren Shaw for being my partner on this work, and I want to thank the back of the house team at BSP who produced these slides and gathered this data and worked overtime. I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully we will be lucky enough for it to work right. And I think we're good. Okay. This poll of Colorado is part of a larger national poll. As Clarissa indicated, there were 3,000 total interviews, and the national outcomes are available on our website and on UnidosUS website. But that 3,000 has a nominal margin of error of plus or minus 1.8%. There's a battleground district subsample of that with 825 respondents, so that's a plus or minus 3.4%. And then we oversampled in the states that we were most interested in, one of which was Colorado. And the Colorado sample is 400 with a margin of error of plus or minus 4.9%. The field dates were October 8th to the 22nd. People could answer in English or Spanish at their own discretion. This was a mixed mode survey, so some respondents answered on the phone, some responded to text messages inviting them to complete on the web, and some received panel email messages inviting them to participate. It's a bipartisan polling team of ourselves and Shaw and Company, and Darren Shaw did the work for his firm. And was part of every part of the process, including writing the questions, analyzing the data, and so forth. So what are our key findings for Colorado? The top message from Hispanic voters in Colorado, and I should tell you elsewhere, is to please lower our costs, please raise our wages. Colorado families and of all races and Colorado Hispanic families are struggling to make ends meet, and Latino elected officials should be addressing things like basic living expenses, affordable housing, and rising costs. Overwhelmingly, 81% of Hispanic voters in Congress are concerned, in Colorado, are concerned that Congress is not exercising its constitutional responsibility as a co-equal branch of government to provide checks and balances to the power of the executive branch and President Trump. The top three issues shaping how people view President Trump are cost of living and inflation, immigration arrests and deportations, and cuts to Medicaid and food assistance programs. Two of those three are bread and butter. The third is the very high-profile anti-immigrant actions being taken nationwide. The majority of Hispanic voters, 61%, hold the president and Republicans responsible for the shutdown, while 23% assign that blame to Democrats. The House vote, the generic ballot, if the election in 2026 was held today, over half of Hispanic voters in Colorado would support Democrats by a ratio of 55 to 21, but both of the parties are underperforming their 2024 numbers, which could be a sign of voter discontent with the entire political system. 38% of Latino voters are new to the Colorado electorate, 19% were new in 24, and another 19% were new in the 20 or 22 elections. 74% are certain or likely to vote, and 26% are not sure. Political violence. Nearly half of Hispanic voters in Colorado are extremely or very concerned that they or someone they love may become a victim of political violence. A plurality blames the Republicans' rhetoric for that, and some blame the Democrats and some blame equally. Military deployments in American cities are not popular. A majority do not support how the military has been used in cities, including 33% of Colorado Hispanics who believe federal military deployments should never occur inside American cities. In terms of presidential support and opposition, 67% of Hispanic voters in Colorado disapprove of President Trump's performance. Among those who voted for him in 2024, 13% would not vote for him in a do-over, compared to less than 1% of Harris voters who would not vote for her. And we'll show you some detail in that in just a moment. So current evaluations of the government and what's been happening. We'll start with the shutdown. Now, 3/4 of Latino voters in Colorado are paying attention to the news, and more than a third of them say they're following it closely. And what they don't like what they see. 61% of Colorado Hispanic voters blame Trump and the Republicans for the shutdown. 23% blame Democrats, and the rest aren't sure. There is a gender gap here, with women more likely to blame Republicans than men, but even among men, it's pretty strong condemnation of the Republican side of the aisle. There is a little bit of difference between US born and naturalized, with US born more likely to blame the Republicans. 8 in 10 Latino voters are concerned about Congress not exercising its constitutional role. 81%, 52% say they're very concerned, 29% say they're somewhat concerned that Congress has given up too much of its authority. This, again, has a gender gap. Women are more concerned about this than men, but even 3/4 of men are concerned that there's an issue going on here. Are Trump and the Republicans focused enough on improving the economy, for people like you? 69% of Colorado Hispanics said no. Only 21% said yes. This is really a kind of a stunning rebuke, given that the administration ran last year on improving the economic circumstances of Americans. When we ask people about their personal financial outlook, that 45% of Colorado Latinos said that compared to last year, they are worse off than they were before. Only 11% said better. Looking forward to next year, 54% expect to be even worse off than they are now, compared to 17% who think things will get better. Again, this is a very serious sort of red flare for GOP political operatives who want to focus on the economy. Views on President Trump, what shapes your opinion of him? They're primarily focused by immigration, arrests, and deportations, cuts to Medicaid and food assistance, cost of living, and then we get to jobs and the economy and the big, beautiful bill. Colorado is a little bit of an exception here. Immigration is a bigger factor in Colorado's attitudes towards the president than it is in other states. In other states, we see more focus on the cost of living and jobs and the economy. Now, it's very consistent. The top 6, 4 of the top 6 are economic bread and butter issues, and the last 2 are military deployments and immigration arrests, those sort of very high power public environment questions. But for sure, it is the case that the immigration and deportations are really what's worrying Colorado Latinos. When you ask Colorado Latinos about civil liberties and civil rights, you'll find that 62% of respondents in Colorado believe that their civil liberties and civil rights have gotten less secure in a Trump administration. And that really indexes on gender. 71% of women think they've gotten less secure, and 52% of men. Now, importantly, the male number is still 52% less secure, 27% more secure. So the opinion tilts in the concerned direction, but not nearly as much as it does for women. Latino voters hold Republicans responsible for the increased political violence. When they were asked, is it mostly due to Democratic talk, Republican talk, or other factors, 44% said due to Republican talk. Only 18% said due to Democratic talk. 28% said equally both parties. So there's a pretty strong finger pointing at the GOP. There is again a gender gap, showing that men are less negative on the GOP here than women are, though it's still the case that a majority of them see the GOP as their rhetoric as being more problematic. Nearly half of Latino voters are concerned that someone they love will be a victim of political violence. 26% are extremely concerned, 22% are very concerned, and another 26% are somewhat concerned. 74% have at least some fear that someone close to them will be swept up in violence. Now, we asked people which party they trusted to respond to on a wide range of issues. You can see that there is a pretty big distribution here. And you'll notice that in the case of border security, they trust the Democrats and Republicans about the same. And I should tell you, in some other states and in our national numbers, the Republicans have an advantage on border security. On all other issues, Democratic trust outstrips Republican trust on healthcare, jobs and employment, election integrity, gun policy, voting rights, inflation, that's a key one, and immigration reform, the cost of housing. On all these issues, the Democrats have 20-point advantages, 30-point advantages, climate change as well. These are places where the Democrats are really well positioned to offer an issue agenda, and the Republicans have some concern. A year ago, border security was more important to many voters. It just isn't right now. So you're going to have to see both parties try to push forward an issue agenda that are going to appeal to the voters. What are the issue priorities? Again, it's all about bread and butter. Cost of living, housing costs, jobs in the economy, and healthcare are the top four. Gun violence and immigration reform are 5 and 6. Everything else is lower after that. And I need to point out that the healthcare concern is a financial concern, which I'll show you in just a moment. So right now, it is definitely the economy that is worrying most Hispanic voters. What economic priorities do Hispanic voters have? This is a very amusing slide. 54% said prices and affordability, 53% said wages and good jobs. Then there is a 26-point drop before you get to any other economic concern. All of the economic concern is focused on how much I make and how much I spend. Job issues are pretty widespread. People were allowed to select up to 3 of these. The tied number one response was the minimum wage is too low and jobs don't pay enough, so I have to take more than one job to make ends meet. The third response has to do with benefits. The fourth response is concerned about being laid off. The fifth response is about automation, particularly AI, replacing workers. So there is job insecurity among Hispanic voters, and those who have jobs feel like their wages and benefits are too low to make ends meet. What are the inflation priorities? Number one is food and basic living expenses, and by the way, that's everywhere. Cost of buying or renting a place are too high, gas and electricity bills are too high, and healthcare costs are too high. Then you have a 7-point drop. Like, these are the big issues that people are worried about when they go to sleep at night. As I mentioned before, healthcare priorities are primarily around financial issues. The number one concern is access to affordable health insurance. The number 2 concern is rising healthcare costs. The number 3 concern is prescription drug costs. The number 4 concern is insurance companies trying to avoid paying. Then you have a 9-point drop before you get to quality. So people are concerned principally about being able to afford healthcare, not necessarily that the healthcare they're getting is dissatisfying to them. They worry about being able to have access to it. Housing priorities are similar. There are a lack of available affordable apartments for rent, and the rents that you're paying now are rising. There's a lack of affordable houses for sale. The cost of maintaining a homestead with electricity, utilities, taxes, insurance, and so forth are worrisome to people. Again, housing is a financial concern. Immigration, of course, was the number one evaluation of President Trump for Colorado Hispanic voters. Their preference in terms of policies they would like to see elected officials enact, the number one answer is providing a path to citizenship for law-abiding undocumented individuals, either dreamers or long-term residents. It's the number one response. The number two response is making sure that detention facilities are safe, sanitary, and humane. The number three is making sure that people subject to deportation proceedings have a day in court. Number four is cracking down on human smugglers and drug traffickers. Number five is legal immigration for families. Number six is making some places, like places of worship, schools, and hospitals, free from immigration enforcement. These are very much quality of life, quality of human treatment concerns with respect to immigration. I'll point out that deporting all immigrants and finishing the wall finish in the last two places for Colorado Hispanic voters. Thinking of recent immigration actions, what is your reaction to this? How is it affecting your life? 40% of Colorado Hispanics feel that they or other U.S. citizens or legal residents will be caught up in the immigration purge. And we know that some folks have been arrested who are here legally or who are citizens. Employers, they believe employers have lost workers because people are afraid to go to work. People are afraid to report crime or interact with the police. People are actually afraid to go to their mandated appointments, immigration appointments, and asylum hearings because people are being arrested when they show up at the immigration center to comply with the rules. Children are missing school, people aren't going out to eat. Like in every aspect of life, Latinos have attenuated their normal behavior and avoided critical locations like work and school in order to stay clear of the immigration surge. The majority of Latino voters oppose sending the National Guard or active duty military to cities to assist in immigration law enforcement. 56% of Colorado Hispanics oppose sending troops to only 23% support. Now, we could ask, are there other circumstances and that you might consider? So 20% of Colorado Hispanics say the federal government should be able to send troops anytime it wants. 35% say only if state and local leaders request them. And a third don't want any sort of federal military deployments in American cities. We did an experiment to see if there was a difference between the crime and safety frame and the immigration enforcement frame, which both have been used to justify the troops in cities. The opposition is high in both cases, but the opposition is 2 points lower and support 3 points higher in the immigration enforcement frame than it is in the crime frame. That's different than it is in some other states. It's not a huge difference, but it's important to note. The Supreme Court last summer allowed ICE to use what we would call racial profiling to arrest people. Their physical appearance, speaking Spanish, doing manual labor, that is enough, according to the Supreme Court, to arrest someone on suspicion of immigration violations. 71% of Colorado Hispanic voters do not support allowing ICE to racially profile. There is a gender difference with women opposing this more than men, but even among men, it's 63% opposed, 24% in favor. This is a non-starter for Hispanic voters across the country. Looking ahead to 2026, we did the generic ballot. It's very early, but in the generic ballot, Colorado Hispanic voters prefer Democrats to Republicans 55 to 21, with 24% in the don't know or someone else range. That's fairly standard for this time, but they're both below what the performance of the parties was last year. So that could indicate some dissatisfaction. There is a substantial gender gap. Women favor Democrats 64 to 12. Men favor Democrats 46 to 31. There is an age gradient that in GOP support, but not in Democratic support. And there's really not a lot of difference between US-born and naturalized voters in this. We went back and asked all of our respondents who they voted for, and then asked if they would do that vote again. Among Colorado respondents to the poll, 35% of them said they had voted for Donald Trump. Would they vote for him again? 80% said yes. 13% said no, and 7% said don't know. A 20% bleed for Trump voters should be very concerning to GOP political operatives. Among the 60% who reported voting for Vice President Harris, 91% said that they would vote for her again. No one said that they would not vote for her again, but about 8% said they weren't sure. So that is a very low bleed for the Democrats and a pretty substantial bleed for President Trump. The majority of Hispanic voters in Colorado disapprove of the job performances of both President Trump and congressional Republicans. 67% of Colorado Hispanic voters disapprove of the president compared to just 27% approval. Two-thirds disapprove, 66% disapprove of the Republicans in the Congress, only 25% approve. When we asked the reputation of the parties, if the parties care a great deal, 51% of respondents said they believe the Democrats cared a great deal. 27% of respondents believe the Republicans cared a great deal. 6% of our respondents said the Democrats were hostile to Latinos. 33% said Republicans were hostile to Latinos, and that is a worrisome number for the GOP. Interestingly, both parties have a very substantial middle of the road position that the parties don't care too much. 43% said Democrats don't care too much. 40% say Republicans don't care too much. And that is really reflective of the alienation of Hispanic voters from a political system that isn't really working for them. In terms of vote plan, 74% of Colorado voters say that they likely or will certainly vote next year. That's a very good number this far out. It's very consistent with the national numbers. We see a more certainty among men than among women, more certainty among US-born than among naturalized, more certainty among middle-aged voters than younger voters. Remember that the electorate is new in Colorado and elsewhere. 19% of Colorado voters were new last year. Another 19% were new in the two elections prior to that. So since 2020, 38% of Colorado's voters are new. And the lesson to both political parties is that the processes of political persuasion, political mobilization to try to reach out to Latino voters and meet their needs, that process has to be ongoing because so much of the electorate is new in every election. I am going to end the talk here and turn it back over to the panel and look forward to hearing what folks have to say.
Thanks so much, Gary. Very informative. We are now going to open it up for questions. If you have a
No,
question.
Curtis, I'm going to
Oh,
close
I'm
this out
sorry,
first.
Dusty. I wanted to give you an opportunity. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Go right ahead.
After me, then folks can ask questions.
That's right.
So thank you, Curtis. Thank you, Gary, Alex, Clarissa, and everyone else involved in this very important undertaking today. I know a lot of work went into this poll, and we're grateful for the opportunity to bolster our own state research that Alex, Voces Unidas, and Colod do by participating in this national survey of Latino voters. Colod joined forces with Voces Unidas 5 years ago to launch the Colorado Latino Agenda because we recognize the power and the potential of gathering data from our community, which reflects the current state of our communities, because it really helps guide our work year-round and all the programmatic work that both Alex's organization and mine does around policy, civic engagement, leadership, all the things we do. These numbers remind us of what our families and communities are facing: the continued cost of living, the loss of Medicaid and other health insurance, specifically here in Colorado, and the access to a lot of life-saving healthcare, the fear of over-policing, and the lack of affordable housing, all of which intersect with reproductive justice. Furthermore, our community is connecting the dots to those policies and issues with who is elected and who is representing them, as we saw in the slides. This data helps us put a science behind what our communities face on the daily, and that our community's priorities are intersectional. They're not a single issue. And as we reflect on these findings, I invite us to hold both the numbers and the nuances, to ask not just what the numbers illustrate, but to delve deeper into the why, so that we can ensure that our solutions reflect the full humanity of the people and the families behind the data. And that's the story that we're proud to carry forward, one where our communities are not just data points or political talking heads, but the storytellers, strategists, and decision makers shaping our collective and just future. And as we head into another pivotal election cycle, data like this helps ground the conversation and what matters most to our communities and the realities that they live every day. And moreover, it really provides us with our marching orders to continue the work that both organizations, Color and Voces Unidas, are doing here in Colorado. So thank you. And now we can turn it over to Curtis for questions.
That's right. Thanks, Dusty. The way we'll handle this is if you would like to ask a question, you can raise your hand. You can also put it into the Q&A. As a reminder, we will be making a recording of this presentation available after today's briefing. We will also be posting the presentation and the polling results at coloradolatinoagenda.org, and we will be sending it out via email as well to everyone who's on today's briefing call. So with that, I will open up the floor to any questions you might have. I have one in the Q&A. Andrea asks, she's with the Vale Daily and the Aspen Times, and she said that it was mentioned that immigration was a larger factor for how voters view Trump in Colorado than it was in other states. Would anything from the survey indicate why Coloradans care more about immigration compared to other states? Gary, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I don't have a particular insight in that. It certainly was surprising to me. I think that Colorado's Latino population is in some sense a little bit less vulnerable to the immigration practices that we've been witnessing nationwide. But I don't have a full understanding for that. And you know, sometimes there's just variation. I do want to point out that similarity is greater than difference. So it's true in other states that immigration was number two, and jobs in the economy was number one. So it's not like it's a wild difference, but it is curious.
And I'll take a
Alex?
I'll take a perspective from our 5 years worth of data in Colorado. This is a very consistent question we ask, Andrea, in terms of the Colorado Latino Policy Agenda, which is the largest sort of survey that we do in the fall. Each year, we've always asked the question about how connected are Latino and Latina voters in Colorado to the immigration topic. And what we've learned is that almost half of Latina and Latino registered voters have someone in their immediate family who may be undocumented or who may be in danger of being obviously targeted by this administration. I believe that that probably connects the dots as to why immigration has always been personal to so many of us here in Colorado because of how connected we are to that issue and how close to home that is. I would also say that I think in Colorado, we've seen, right, the Aurora, right? The President Trump came to Aurora. President Trump used Aurora as you know a platform to with his hate and his policy approach. We've seen probably more than 400 individuals being kidnapped from our communities here in Colorado. Some of the largest actual raids have happened in Colorado, whether that's Colorado Springs, whether that's Aurora, whether that's north of Denver as well. So we've seen a lot of attacks, and I think this is, to us who are in community and who are working every single day responding to these incidents, I think that is what it would explain sort of the data.
Thanks. Next question is from Nick Coltrane at the Denver Post, and he asks, He said, you mentioned the bleed that President Trump saw among Latinos who voted for him in 2024, and he wonders if we have a comparison to President Biden following 2020. And Alex, I'll toss that to you. And Nick, just having done this since 2021, we'll probably have to go back into our archives and look. I don't know that we checked and asked that question before, but Alex, you may have a better memory than me.
So I don't have that number in hand, and I'm trying to look. Oh, I see it. It's in the question that he asked in the Q&A. Got it. I don't know the number. We can certainly follow up with you, Nick. We certainly did ask that question in both the April poll, which was actually in combination with UnidosUS. That sample from Colorado was a little bit smaller than this robust sample that we're talking about now. But we just released the CLPA 2025 in late September, and we have obviously longitudinal now data that we can compare multiple years. Certainly when both Biden and Trump were questions in our research. So we'll follow up with you, Nick, on that one.
Good.
And on that, I would say, although it's not an apples to apples comparison because it's different survey teams, but I think Eki's research has done a lot of detailed look into the Biden bleed, for lack of a better term. So that's another place where you can find some information, at least a national level. I'm not sure that they would have it for Colorado.
Good. Our next question comes from Caitlin Kim with Colorado Public Radio. She said the slide went quickly, but she thought she saw that a larger percentage of Republicans were planning to vote next year compared to Democrats. Is that a sign of discontent within the party or something else? And maybe, Gary, you could put that slide up again just so we could take a look at that.
Sure, let me share.
And while you're doing that, feel free also to raise your hand if you'd like to just ask your question rather than type it into the Q&A. I am happy to read them, but we want to make it easy on you as well.
So this is intention to vote. For Colorado overall was 74% in the certain and likely. For Democrats, it was 73%. And for Republicans, I'm sorry, for Democrats, it was 83%. For Republicans, it was 76%. And the low number is the independents, which is always the case, by the way. Committed partisans vote more often than middle of the road folk.
Great, thank you.
And so I would say that the driving force behind them, why are Democrats, more energetic about turning out? Because they're angry. And I think that's, pretty straightforward. That's not a surprise.
Any additional questions? Going once? Going twice? All right. So seeing none, why don't we give our panelists one final opportunity to add any insights that they may want to offer, and then we will get to work getting the press release out and posting the materials to ColoradoLatinoAgenda.org, where you can find them. Alex, do you want to carry us out?
Yeah, just again, thank you, the journalists who have been part of obviously many conversations this year. This is our third press briefing around public opinion research, first in April, then in September, now again in November. Thank you. You know how to reach us if you have follow-up questions. We believe that Colorado deserves to be part of the national conversation. As we said, Congressional District 8 and Congressional District 8, as well as one Senate, federal Senate district, are obviously will be on the ballot in 2026. We know Colorado will be critical to the national debates of who controls Congress. And so we are just glad that Coloradans and our voices and our views are also part of this national discussion. Thank you again to UnidosUS. Thank you to Dr. Segura with VSP Research and to Shaw and Company. Of course, Color and Voces Unidas are committed to this body of work. We know that we need more data, not less, and that data needs to be done in a way that it's by the community, for the community, and that we get to share the narratives as we see it so that practitioners, other nonprofits, policymakers, journalists have at least a baseline, a snapshot in time to be able to continue to dig deeper as to how Latinas and Latinos feel in the state of Colorado. So thank you.
Thanks so much. And thank you again to everyone. Clarissa,
Sorry,
go ahead.
just one last thing I would say is that if folks are interested in the comparisons between Colorado and other states in an interactive manner, you can go to the Hispanic Electorate Data Hub, and you will see the results of this poll for a number of items. But you can compare Colorado to national to other states. We had a battleground sample as well as 5 other states. So you can see where Coloradans are right right on target with Latino voters elsewhere, or where some of their priorities may be being expressed more intensely. And thanks to the Colorado Latino Agenda for their partnership and for hosting this briefing.
Good. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and we appreciate your time. Take care.